Okay. I call to order the Knox County Committee on Health and Economic Well-Being, and I will do a roll call. Commissioner Dashiell Lundy,
Here.
David Moon,
Here.
Dr. Joshua Williams,
Here.
Raymond Degenero,
Here.
Allison Oaks,
Here.
Kathleen Brown,
Here.
Regina Hensley,
Here.
Dr. James Chu,
Here.
Carletta Smeltzer,
Here.
Candace Fox.
Here.
All members are present. First order of business is presentation on a preliminary procedure from the Law Director's Office.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
I believe that there are a few people that are not muted, so I'm hearing people eating food and things in the background. If somebody could mute, that would be wonderful so I can hear you.
Okay, I'm going to be short and sweet because this is your first meeting. You got a lot to talk about. I've been asked to give you just a brief primer on parliamentary procedure. Most of you probably know the basics because I'm sure you've been at meetings starting from student council on up to all kinds of organizations you've been with. It's really pretty simple. First thing you're going to do after I get off of here is you're going to, Angie Nesbitt, the clerk, is going to ask for nominations for chairman. You're going to elect a chairman and then a vice chairman and a secretary. And once that's done, the chairman takes over and does the rest of the meeting. Normally, what is required under the open record or open meetings law is that there is a notice given to the public at least 48 hours ahead of time as to that you're going to have a meeting. The second thing is there needs to put out an agenda as to what you're going to do. You're going to be doing several things, a lot of discussion, and that goes down as a discussion item. You're going to discuss this or that or just general discussion. The other things that you will do would be to pass resolutions, which you want to pass on to either the mayor or the county commission for their action to be taken. If you vote on anything, it takes, as you probably know from past experience, somebody makes a motion. And then that motion is seconded. And then after it's made and seconded, then there is discussion. You can't have discussion on a proposed resolution until there's a motion and a second. The discussion goes on until all the discussion is done. Nobody has anything else. And then the chairman calls for a vote, aye or nay. If you're Zooming, it has to be a roll call vote. And Angie would call off your name and you would say yes or no, or aye or nay, or however you want to indicate it. At a normal, go ahead. Oh, I thought I heard somebody asking something. In a normal meeting, if you're meeting in person, you can have these votes by just a voice vote. But if you're Zooming, the law requires that there be a roll call vote. And Angie's well versed in that and how that goes on. So she'll be there at your side on that. Also, somebody from the law department will appear with you to answer any questions you might have with regard to the law or with parliamentary procedure. That's basically the short and sweet of it. Now, normally on an agenda, what you have is it starts off and it will show a call to order actually written out. The second thing would be any amendments to the agenda that you may want to make as last minute amendments, and they can be added by a majority vote of the body. Then you have an approval of the minutes of the prior meeting. And I'm sure all of this is redundant to many of you, but you will approve the minutes of the prior meeting or make changes or adjustments as you read those minutes. Then you will move into the business that you have set out by way of the agenda. And I'm assuming the best way to do this is if you want something on the agenda, you get it to Andrew, and Andrew can handle getting the agenda ready. And I'm volunteering him for that at this point because he is kind of your central point, and he can get everything that you want on an agenda put on that agenda for the meeting. That's the short and sweet of it. The other thing is under the Open Meetings Act, and since you are giving, it's part of your charge to give advice and recommendations to county commission and to the mayor, you fall under the open meetings law, which I've just described to you about what you've got to do. But one of those things is you are not allowed to discuss amongst yourselves outside of the meeting any of the resolutions or whatever you're going to vote on. Unfortunately, that's the way the open meetings law is written. And according to the state legislature, they say they can do it because they've opted out of that. So they can meet and talk and go to a restaurant and have a lunch and discuss anything they want. You, like county commission and like any other body in Knox County, cannot do that, unfortunately, but that's what the open meetings law is. Having said that, if you don't have any questions, I'll turn it back over and let Angie take the nomination so you can elect your chairman and move on.
Is there no questions for Mr. Buke? Okay, now we will do the election of the committee officers. The floor is now open for nominations for chairperson of the Knox County Committee on Health and Economic Well-Being, and I will start the roll call. If you do not want to pick someone, you just say pass. The first name is Commissioner Lundy.
Pass.
Pass.
Yes.
Commissioner Lundy passes. David Moon.
Without having discussed it with him, I'd nominate Dr. Ray Degenero as chairman of this august body.
Mr. Moon nominates Mr. Degenero. Dr. Joshua Williams.
I'd like to know whether Raymond Degenero would like to accept the position. If so, I'd certainly second it.
If I may respectfully decline, I am honored and would be happy to serve were I more versed in the procedures of the committee. I do not feel competent to do that. I promise that I will be very vocal when I feel the need to, but I think I must pass because I'm unfamiliar with the procedures.
I think that's probably true for all of us, since this is our first meeting and we haven't got a charter per se, and this is uncharted territory. So it's odd to be asked to chair something when you don't know what it is precisely.
If I may interject, Doctor, I understand what you're saying. However, I think Dr. Williams is absolutely correct, and you will have support from this office as to any of the procedures and all of that. So you will have good backup if you decide to take this. And respectfully, your honesty is very well taken, and I understand that. But I think it's probably like everybody else on this board. So don't let that stand in your way is all I'm saying.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Let's see if we can get someone else to volunteer before the onus is passed to me. If we have someone who's actually willing to accept the position, then I think that person should certainly be so honored.
Dr. Joshua Williams, did you want to pass or?
I gathered that I will pass. Thank you.
Okay. Raymond Degenero.
I pass.
Allison Oaks,
Pass as well.
Kathleen Brown,
Pass.
Regina Hensley,
I'm not sure if I'm going to pronounce this right, but Miss Viox.
Miss Hensley nominates Candace Viox.
I appreciate that. I'm on several boards. If there's nobody else that would like to step in as this chair, I know that I was just told I'd have the support of everybody. I would be honored to become the chairperson for this board if that is what you would like for me to do. So I accept the nomination. Thank you, Regina.
Okay. Dr. James Chu,
I pass.
Carletta Smeltzer,
To nominate Dr. Joshua Williams.
Joshua Williams,
Am I to respond?
yes, you can.
I'll be happy to help in any way I can.
Thank you. Okay. Carletta Smeltzer,
Yes. Do you need me to say something else?
you're the one that nominated for Williams.
Correct.
Candace Viox, do you pass or do you want to?
I too will nominate Dr. Williams.
Dr. Williams. Okay, we have 3. Viox, Williams, and Degenero. 3. Hold just a minute. Let me make a. And Williams. Okay, we have 3, and I'll start the roll call. Commissioner Lundy,
Miss Viox.
Candace Viox,
Yes.
okay. David Moon,
Dr. Williams,
Dr. Williams, Dr. Joshua Williams,
May I pass for right now?
yes. Raymond Degenero,
Dr. Joshua Williams.
Dr. Williams. Allison Oaks,
Dr. Williams.
Allison Williams votes for Allison Oaks and Williams. Kathleen Brown, excuse me.
That's fine. I'm feeling just a little bit unsure because I'm basing this totally on this few minutes of interaction. I feel like it's greatly a person's willingness and commitment. I think I'm hearing about the same, but maybe Candace had a little bit more. The lead-in was some concern for the time, but willingness. So I would support Dr. Williams. Perhaps the next office will go to Candace.
Kathleen Brown for Dr. Williams. Regina Hensley.
Miss Viox.
Ms. Hensley votes for Ms. Viox. Dr. James Chu.
I'll pass.
Dr. Chu passes. Carletta Smeltzer.
Dr. Joshua Williams.
Ms. Williams votes for Dr. Williams. Ms. Smeltzer votes for Dr. Williams. Candace Fox.
I'll pass.
Okay, does the pass wish to vote? Dr. Williams, do you wish to vote?
Can you tell us what the tally is now, please?
Okay, we have Candace Fox with 2. Raymond Degenero, 0. Dr. Williams with 5.
So I would like to vote for Ms. Viox.
Okay. Joshua Williams votes for Ms. Viox. Dr. Chu, would you like to vote?
No, I'll continue to pass.
Pass, okay. And Candace Viox. Do you
I'll
wish
vote
to
for Dr. Williams. Yes.
Dr. Williams, okay. Okay, we have 3 for Candace Viox, 0 for Raymond Degenero, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for Dr. Williams. So, Dr. Williams, congratulations.
Well, I hope I'm worthy of your trust and appreciate your confidence. And I look forward to getting to know all of you.
Okay, would you like to go ahead and start?
You mean I have the gavel?
Well, I would hand you the gavel if I could.
As our resident parliamentarian, would you tell me what to do with it?
Okay, now we're going to vote for vice chair.
Okay, so what I'd like to do is ask for nominations for vice chair, and I guess we'll call the roll in a similar fashion.
Okay, this is for vice chair. Commissioner Lundy.
Candace Viox.
Okay. Candace Viox. David Moon.
Commissioner Lundy.
David Moon nominates Commissioner Lundy. Dr. Williams.
Ms. Lundy.
Also Lundy. Raymond Degenero.
Pass.
Passes. Allison Oaks.
Pass.
Allison Oaks passes. Kathleen Brown.
Commissioner Lundy.
Kathleen Brown also for Commissioner Lundy. Regina Hensley,
Commissioner Lundy.
also Commissioner Lundy. Dr. James Cho.
I will pass.
Dr. Chu passes. Carletta Smeltzer,
Commissioner Lundy.
also Commissioner Lundy. And Candace Fox.
Commissioner Lundy.
Also Commissioner Lundy. Okay, we have 2. Candace Fox and Commissioner Lundy. And I will do the roll call. Commissioner Lundy,
Candace Viox.
Commissioner Lundy votes for Candace Viox. David Moon.
Commissioner Lundy.
David Moon votes for Commissioner Lundy. Dr. Williams.
Ms. Viox.
Dr. Williams votes for Ms. Viox. Raymond Degenero. Do you wish to pass or vote for?
I will pass for now.
Okay. Allison Oaks.
Commissioner Lundy.
Allison Oaks votes for Commissioner Lundy. Kathleen Brown.
Commissioner Lundy.
Kathleen Brown votes for Commissioner Lundy. Regina Hensley.
Commissioner Lundy.
Ms. Hensley votes for Commissioner Lundy. Dr. James Chu.
I'll pass.
Dr. Chu passes. Carletta Smeltzer.
Commissioner Lundy.
Carletta Smeltzer votes for Commissioner Lundy. Candace Fox.
Commissioner Lundy.
Candace Fox votes for Commissioner Lundy. Candace Fox, oh, does the pass wish to vote?
I said Commissioner Lundy, I'm sorry.
I have you down for Lundy. There was two passes, Raymond Degenero and Dr. Chu. Do they wish to?
I vote for Commissioner Lundy.
And who was that?
That was Raymond Degenero.
Okay. And Dr. Chu, do you wish to remain pass or
I'll remain pass.
remains passes? Okay. Commissioner Lundy has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 votes. Candace Vaux with 2. And 1 pass. So Commissioner Lundy is vice chair.
Thank you for your willingness to serve, Dr. Lundy. I'm sorry I called you Ms. Lundy earlier. It's my mistake.
That's fine. I look forward to working with you.
Thank you. Well, Ms. Nesbitt, what do we do next?
Okay, now then you're going to pick a secretary to do your meetings.
So I'd like to call for nomination for secretary for this esteemed committee.
And I'm going to do a roll call.
Angie, can we go over the roles and responsibilities of the secretary?
You will be taking minutes. And you really would need to talk to, is David still there? David Bick?
I am here.
Could you go over all the secretary's duties?
Well, basically, you said it, it's to keep the minutes and bring the minutes to the meeting or hand them to the chairman and get them out to everybody so they can read the proposed minutes so you can move on them at the next meeting. It's really not that much involved at all. These meetings will be, are going to be, I assume, Angie, these meetings are going to be either televised, at least as long as they're Zoom, they're televised, and so it would be there. And all you have to do for minutes of a meeting are very simple under Robert's Rules of Order. It's a motion was made, here's what the motion said, and then it was passed or denied with the number like 5-4 or whatever. That's all that's technically under Robert's rules that are in the minutes. You don't have to go by blow of what happened or what was discussed. That's there for people to look at if they want to. So it's really fairly straightforward and simple.
So we need to have a call for nominations at this time, and I guess that's a roll call once again.
Yes, sir.
Can we do it? Then?
Commissioner,
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. Commissioner Lundy.
Pass.
Commissioner Lundy passes. David Moon.
Pass.
David Moon passes. Dr. Joshua Williams.
I will pass this time.
Dr. Williams passes. Dr. Raymond Degenero.
I pass.
Dr. Degenero passes. Allison Oaks.
Pass.
Allison Oaks passes. Kathleen Brown.
Pass.
Kathleen Brown passes. Regina Hensley.
Pass.
Regina Hensley passes. Dr. Chu.
Pass.
Dr. Chu passes. Carletta Smeltzer.
Pass.
Carletta Smeltzer passes. Candace Fox.
Pass.
Candace Fox passes.
So having all passed, I guess the next question is there anyone in this group that's interested in this position? Because if so, I think we're in a position to affirm your appointment by full consensus. This isn't it's not a briar patch, but would anyone like to get thrown into it? Ms. Nesbitt, we have a problem.
I'll do it if it'll progress the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we need to vote, or does that look like unanimous consent?
I think that's unanimous, but we'll do it.
No, I don't think you have to vote if somebody just makes a motion by acclamation.
Okay.
And I think at this point, move the meeting along. If nobody objects, then that's.
Not only do we not object, but we are very appreciative.
Okay.
Ms. Nesbitt, is there anything else on our formal agenda at this time?
Discussion of plans for next meeting.
I'd like to suggest that we do something intervening with that step, and that is to introduce ourselves to one another. Since we've never met before, I think it would be helpful for us to know a little bit about one another. It might have been smart to do that before we had this vote, but we should certainly do it now. Happy to start, or okay. I'm Josh Williams. I'm a clinical psychologist here in Knoxville. I'm originally from New York City. I've lived in Knoxville for over 40 years. I came here to get my doctorate at UT. I was the director of the Overlook Mental Health Center in Maryville for a year. I was the director of psychiatric services at East Tennessee Children's Hospital for over 10 years. I'm an independent practitioner. I practice with my wife, who's also a psychologist. I met her at UT, with the best part of my doctorate. I have an unusual practice in that I see people twice a week in my office. I'm there twice a week. And then the other 3 days of the week, I make rounds in medical hospitals in Knoxville. And as far as I know, I'm the only psychologist routinely doing behavioral medicine with patients, very sick patients, typically in hospital beds. So I have an abiding love for hospital work. I have a deep appreciation for the work of physical therapists, Commissioner. I work with them extensively. And I was pleased to know that the mayor was looking for some help and guidance in assuring the health and economic surety of our area. So I'm hoping that this group can do some very constructive work together and lend some guidance. These are certainly very trying times, and we need some wizened voices in the fray right now. And thank you again for your confidence in me. Mr. Moon, tell us about you.
Thank you, Josh. David Moon. I came to Knoxville in 1981 to attend the University of Tennessee, and inertia took hold and I haven't left. So I have an investment management firm. We manage money for individuals and a hedge fund and some other institutions, and am honored to be among this group. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Brown?
Hi, all. I am Kathy Brown, and I've been in Knoxville for over 30 years. And I am currently a associate professor at the University of Tennessee in the Department of Public Health. I am over our Master's in Public Health program, and public health is a near and very, very dear to my heart. Very committed to the health and well-being of the community, the broader community, our state. I worked for a while in between academic appointments at the Knox County Health Department as the regional epidemiologist. Did that for about 8 years, conducted and participated in community assessments and a better understanding of the challenges facing all sectors of our county. I started out in nursing. I worked for 12 years as an ICU nurse. So I also have a fair amount of experience working in hospitals, and I just can't get away from health. I too am very strongly and totally committed to the health and well-being of our community, and I look forward to contributing on whatever level I can to the success of this committee.
And once again, I misspoke. You have a doctorate in public health, is that not correct?
Community health, that is correct.
So you're also Dr. Brown, I'm sorry.
I tend not to stand on too much ceremony when we're really trying to work together.
Well, at some point, we'll all go to first names, I'm sure, but by way of background, it's useful.
Thank you.
Our policy advisor, Mr. Davis, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure, guys. I'm Andrew Davis. I'm the policy advisor for the mayor's office. Born and raised in Farragut, Tennessee. Prior to this, I worked for Congressman Burchett, and I'm excited to get to know you all.
And Ms. Viox, you have a distinguished history as a maven, a gourmet restaurant owner, and let's learn more about you as well.
I appreciate that. I am originally from Southern California. I moved to Tennessee area in 1992. I've been ended up doing the culinary program with Pellissippi and UT's joint culinary program about 8 years ago. And then I decided that I wanted to open a restaurant, kind of a classy bar lounge that catered to women. My focus and my passion is women's health, women's mental health. I hated going to local bars in the area and seeing women preyed upon and by drunk people all the time. So I decided to open up a different kind of concept. So we've become pretty much the ladies' social lounge for bridal events and wedding showers and things like that. So it's been kind of a fun thing. The name Water and Wine, when my mom and dad moved here with me from California, my mom said, if Christ's first miracle was turning water into wine, I can drink it. So I wasn't used to the whole Southern Baptist kind of forte because I wasn't raised necessarily with that. And so I named my restaurant after my mom when unfortunately she passed away in 2010. So that's Mayor Jacobs has done some conversing with me about the restaurant industry, how we are being affected by the shutdowns, how I'm able to keep 12 team members with jobs to pay their rent and their child care and their car payments and all the things that come with owning a business and not being able to be unemployed for 12 months. So I think that's kind of why he asked me to be part of this group as a business owner and as an employer of 12 people that look to me to pay their bills. So that's what I hope I can help contribute and be of any assistance at all to the board.
Candace, when I first moved here from New York City in 1978, I wrote to my family that Knoxville was like a cup of yogurt, except that yogurt had active culture. And because of the proliferation of wonderful restaurants and other cultural events, I can no longer send that bad joke back to New York City. So thank you for what you're doing. Allison, I'm afraid I don't even know your last name. You don't have it up.
Allison Oaks.
Madam Secretary.
Allison Oaks, native Knoxvillian. I guess I should say how many years, but we'll just guess at that. I live in Halls. I'm a broker owner of Platinum Realty. I've been in real estate for 22 years. I opened a real estate firm in August of 2008, just before the recession. So we weathered that storm quite nicely. It was hard, but this pandemic puts me in mind of that time period for my company. And I just look around at, my community, all of the local business owners, and I feel like we just need to band together. And when I heard about this opportunity, I thought, what better way to, I don't really know, share the knowledge, but help, find some sort of goodness or a communal aspect of charity that we can band together and do. So that was my primary reason for applying.
Well, thank you again for your willingness to serve on, I guess, the executive committee, we'll call it. So thank you. And Dr. Smeltzer, my colleague on the committee, I should say.
Thanks, Dr. Williams. I'm also from Knoxville. I've worked in the mental health field for, I guess, about 20 years almost. I started out working for a community mental health field, and I was there for about 15 years. I also work as an adjunct professor at LMU and Johnson University. So I really enjoy just being able to share my knowledge and help others, students that are going to help clients, hopefully in the future. I also own my own private practice, Lions View Counseling. So, and I, like you, Allison, opening something during a very stressful time, opened my private practice last year. So it's been a good challenge, and just to see the needs of people during a pandemic as well. But I am glad to be on the committee with all of you and happy to help in any way that I can.
Thank you. And Ms. Hensley, you're also from the medical sector, is that correct?
Correct. I'm a nurse practitioner. I've been in the field for over 30 years. I was a registered nurse for quite many years. I won't say how many. And then I went back to school to get my master's degree. I worked in the home care field in rural Southwest Virginia, and then moved to Tennessee to pursue my education. I work in long-term care, skilled nursing facility. And I mean, the main reason when I saw this ad for this new committee, we've been on lockdown probably as long as everybody else. Our facility went on lockdown. I had 100 residents that have not seen their families since March of last year, trying to keep them safe from COVID. We did manage to keep it out of our facility for quite a while. After I applied for this committee position, COVID did take over, had quite a few cases, lost quite a few residents. So, I've seen that effect on coworkers. I've seen that effect on patients. I've heard the effect on families. So I just, want to do something for our community, to keep everyone safe, but yet still keep our mental health intact, because it has affected all of us. So that's my main goal.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Dr. Chu?
Hi, I'm James Chu. I'm a Knoxville native. I'm a physician that's been working in this area for about 11 years. I'm an owner of Pain Consultants of East Tennessee, which is a multidisciplinary practice where we have integrated into our practice multiple nurse practitioners. We have a surgery center, but we also have, importantly, 3 psychologists that work with us and have worked with us for many, many years, and physical therapists, occupational therapists. So we try to think about pain in a interdisciplinary way, looking at all aspects of pain, and thinking about the patient in a holistic way. I've worked for many years on issues with the opioid crisis. So I've worked with leaders with Metro Drug Coalition, Tennessee Pain Society, Tennessee Medical Association. I was a part of a task force for the opioid guideline committee that Bill Haslam had put together. So a lot of the compulsory education on opioids came from the guidelines that I helped create along with many others. During that time, also helped craft legislation with some other leaders in order to strengthen the requirements for pain centers throughout the state. And we saw a lot of the overall usage of opioids decrease as a result, in some good ways and some bad ways, but mostly good. But then we also saw the sequela of some of our measures when it comes to illicit opioids and the devastation it's created in our region. I've worked with, created the East Tennessee Opioid Conference, which is tomorrow, with Summit Medical Group, Cigna, and leaders of Metro Drug Coalition and Knoxville Academy of Medicine, and Cherokee Mental Health, which will talk about some of the ongoing issues with the opioid crisis. So I'll be giving a lecture tomorrow in the afternoon. And I've given multiple lectures around the state and in the region on issues with trauma, opioids, things related to pain. Since this is my hometown, I'm interested in the health and viability of our region, especially when it comes to the pandemic and responses that have occurred in good ways and bad ways in our regions, especially in our hospitals. We certainly need to protect those who are at most risk for a lot of issues, but keeping in mind that a holistic view of health is extremely important, and all measures aren't one particular disease or many diseases, and there are vulnerable individuals that are really, really suffering at the moment. And so I'm really looking forward to working with this kind of multi-stakeholder group. It's something that I'm used to, working with Tennessee Bureau of Investigation and leaders in KPD and other kind of multi-stakeholders in various opioid issues. It's exciting. You'll always learn something and hopefully make better decisions for the community. And I'm excited to be a part of it. So thank you.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Commissioner, you're from the 1st District, as I understand, in Knoxville, and that's certainly one of the most activist districts in the city for so long, led by Dr. Middlebrook. And it's a pleasure to get to know you as well. Why don't you give us a little of your background?
Yes, I'm born and raised in Knoxville, Tennessee. I always served the community. As you know, I was recently elected in 2020. I'm also the COO of Knoxville College, and I'm also still practicing physical therapy, but that's questionable how much longer I can hold on to that job. But yes, very passionate about health. I voted for this committee for the simple fact that I do home health, and I've seen so much. Some of my patients are dealing with COVID alone. And I don't think everyone understands how mental health illness does impact health. And I'm hoping that this committee will bring balance to our community, as you all have already seen the whole ordeal with the Board of Health. And I just want to publicly say this is not something that's against the Board of Health. The Board of Health is still there, and they're doing their job. I think we are here to balance out everything. And I'm looking forward to working with everybody, and thank you all for serving.
I'm following along on the palette that Zoom is providing. Angie, we don't know much about you. You've been very helpful so far. Ms. Nesbitt, are you out there?
Yes. I've worked for Knox County for 47 years. I've worked in the clerk's office for 31 years, so taking minutes for the commissioners. That's my life. I've never worked anyplace else. So
We're obviously very lucky to have you, since you know how the engine works. You know where the bodies are buried for a committee like this. So we're glad to have you. Have we heard from Jacob Haskew? Is this person here?
I don't know a Jacob Haskew. He might be an IT person who just happens to be on the call, but he's not a member of the committee.
And Raymond Degenero?
Hello. My name is Raymond Degenero. I am a professor of finance at the University of Tennessee. I have been there since the fall of 1990, so that's about 30 some odd years. My PhD is in finance with a minor in economics from The Ohio State University. I've also served a few years as a visiting scholar at the Federal Reserve Banks of Cleveland and Atlanta. I do consult and write for various organizations when I have some time. I'm honored to serve with you on this committee.
Thank you. If you hear Lucy chiming in, one of the big phenomenons that's happened since the virus hit is that a lot of people are working from home and have elected to get small dogs. I have a puppy named Lucy, and she's announcing herself, so I'm sorry for the interruption. And Rob Link appears. There is not a Rob Link present.
Rob's our IT guy. He may not be present at his computer at the moment.
Okay, you can see Lucy in the picture. I've been finding myself thinking about a little bit of history, and that some of our grandparents and great-grandparents used to die from diseases of contagion exclusively. And, you know, everything from tuberculosis to smallpox to polio, what have you. And as the medical practitioners here can tell you, that that's changed with the advent of vaccines and antibiotics. And typically now people live long enough to die from their behavior. This COVID virus has thrown that all into the wind, because now we're dying from contagion and behavior. And a committee like this can do some wonderful work in helping to inform the county commission, the Board of Health, or whomever about some of the behaviors and plans that our area should have. And behavior includes economics, of course. So it's wonderful to have this mixture of disciplines and folks here. It's an old Gestalt principle of the sum being greater than the parts. We are in a position to do some wonderful advisory work. I suppose along those lines, then we should probably talk about what we want to do next, and that would be devising an agenda for our next meeting. What are your thoughts?
Mr. Chairman, I would, before we get too far down that path, I was wondering if Mr. Book could just go through the commission action that created this committee and remind us what county commission voted on when they created this.
I think that's a great idea. I think our commissioner was helpful in saying that it seemed as though some of the design was to in some way alter the function of the health department. And I certainly did not sign on to do that either. So Mr. Book?
Yes, basically what it was there, I don't want to get into everything, but the community was divided, still is divided on with regard to the Board of Health and things like that. And that's not our issue, but the mayor was in favor of getting something. The Board of Health has one issue that they deal with, and that is this pandemic. And they have a duty under statute to make policy, which then the health director must carry out. And I won't get into all the, I mean, it's a strangled mess, but they have one duty, and they look only to what Dr. Buchanan's data is that she gives to them, and then they turn around and declare policy, which you followed in the paper. Several of the, well, a majority of the commission felt that there needed to be some other insight in this pandemic that looked at things other than the COVID and the coronavirus, the health thing. And that is why you all have been picked because, as you all know, there's a deep psychological problem. People that have been pent up in their houses, haven't been able to visit family. And you hear these horror stories about the patients in the nursing homes, and they desperately need their families to keep their mental health, and they haven't been able to do it. The economic impact has been tremendous. And so the mayor and the majority of the commissioners decided that there should be a committee that looked into all aspects, not just the health aspects. That you will be looking into health aspects and that, but it's all these other aspects that have affected Knox Countyans in this terrible pandemic, and to make recommendations what you see as to these other problems, the psychological, the medical, the economic problems, and that's what you are here to do. And from what I've seen, it's a very good cross section of you all with this kind of expertise. And in a nutshell, that's why you are here.
It is interesting to note that we do not have a teacher. Is that perhaps because these folks are also employees of the county?
I'm not sure exactly when that was set up, exactly who all they wanted. I don't know that a teacher, you know, the commission could easily decide that it would be beneficial to have a teacher, and by a simple resolution, they can say that a teacher could join this body. And that might be a suggestion that this body might want to make to commission if it feels it would be good to have. I don't think it was, I don't think anybody, probably my gut looking at it, it probably wasn't an attempt to keep teachers out. It was just the initial thing that they were thinking of. But if this body thinks it's a good idea, you can simply make a recommendation to county commission to increase this board to add a teacher.
Well, I'm sorry.
If I may break in, I think we want to specify that we mean K through 12. I do teach approximately 500 or 600 students a term, but those aren't the people we're talking about. So let's make sure we get a K through 12 teacher.
I think that's a good point, and that's exactly what I was thinking of. Given the urgency on a national scale for opening schools, and how we look to our schools for remedies for so many of our society's ills, it would behoove us, I think, to have a teacher on this committee. So I guess, Ms. Nesbitt, is it okay to ask for a vote or a proposal, a suggestion?
If I may, I think if you at this meeting want to make that motion, if somebody makes that motion and go through and second it and then vote on it by roll call vote, then that document could be prepared either by Ms. Nesbitt or your secretary and delivered to Drusilla, or this office would get it to Drusilla, who Dr. Lundy knows well, that puts things together for county commission. We'd be glad to do that. But I think, yeah, if you want to make the motion and do it, go ahead.
Before we do that, I wonder if anyone can think of another discipline that might also be well represented here.
I would like to add, we need to consider adding a special needs teacher.
Absolutely.
Yes, a visually impaired person, a hearing impaired person, or a person who teaches students of that type, behaviorally challenged. That's a very different type of teacher, and it's a very different set of needs. They need to be heard.
Oh, you're absolutely right. And I've had the privilege of working with a number of them, and they are up against it, no doubt about it. So would someone like to make a motion?
I make the motion that we have a teacher and a special needs teacher.
So two individuals then.
Seconded.
And again, to specify, these are K through 12 educators that we're referring to. Do do we need to have a voice vote, ayes and nays, or is this unanimous consent? How do we want to proceed?
Josh,
Under
one,
statute, you've got to do a roll call.
Okay,
I would, parliamentary, as a matter of discussion, before we take the vote, Mr. Boot, can we add to the committee, or are we recommending, or are we asking commission to add to the committee? Since commission created the group, do we go back to them to change what it is that they created?
that was my understanding, that we'd be requesting that they make that motion within the commission.
Yes, you're asking commission to make that addition. And I'd say it would probably be well taken by commission.
If I might add or ask a question, and I may be incorrect on this. My understanding is there is a community advisory committee to the school system. Is anyone aware or no? I thought the school system had also put together.
They may have. I don't see that these would be mutually exclusive entities though, so.
Well, my thought being again, so that they are not, if there is one in existence, is it meaningful to have some kind of communication across them so we work more together rather than either in parallel or the silos as we're so often do, if there's already effort out there. Now, I don't know how active they are or if in fact they are still being called upon, but I thought, though I can be mistaken, that there had been a committee. Just wondering if there's some efficiency or value to trying to intersect with that group.
It might be useful to know the existence of all the committees that are advising the commission and to see if we need to have interacting representation across the board for that matter. I think that's a good point.
Mr. Chairman, I wonder if we could maybe have some other information about why exactly the individual positions that are on this committee, maybe why commission thought about that. I'm sure they did probably think about teachers at some point in time. I just think maybe having some historical information might be helpful before we are, I guess maybe it feels like we're jumping the gun, maybe to add on to the committee in some ways.
Is there further discussion?
I was going to reply. I don't know who was talking before. I couldn't see you on my screen, but there is an advisory board to the schools. They don't report to commission. There are a couple of teachers on the Board of Health also. Well, no, it's one teacher, the health teacher. The community person is the health teacher on the Board of Health, and the other lady is a school nurse who serves on the Board of Health also.
So it does not sound like there'd be great overlap. Again, as part of the discussion, I think when we're talking about the community's well-being, their mental health, and even economics, given how parents can't work when their kids are home during the pandemic, across the board, it would be useful to have educator teachers' perspectives in this group as well. But I gather by parliamentary procedure, we already have a motion that we need to act upon. And I think that if we pass this motion, it will go to commission, and if there was deliberation as to why they would or would not have included a teacher, that will be relayed back to us. So there's nothing determinative in our vote. It's just our recommendation that it be considered. Is there any further discussion?
Has there been a second? Has there been a second to the motion?
I did second this motion.
Okay, then.
Yeah. So, Angie, I don't know if you've got it framed, but basically we are asking that the commission consider the appointment of a K through 12 teacher as well as a special needs or special education teacher of the same designation.
Yes, I have it down.
Okay. So shall we call a roll, please?
Wait with you a minute. Commissioner Lundy.
Aye.
Commissioner Lundy votes aye. David Moon.
Aye.
David Moon votes aye. Dr. Joshua Williams.
Aye.
Dr. Williams votes aye. Raymond Degenero.
Aye.
Mr. Raymond Degenero votes aye. Allison Oaks.
Aye.
Allison Oaks votes aye. Kathleen Brown.
Aye.
Kathleen Brown votes aye. Regina Hensley.
Aye.
Regina Hensley votes aye. Dr. Chu.
Aye.
Dr. Chu votes aye. Carletta Smeltzer.
Aye.
Carletta Smeltzer votes aye. And Candace Vaux.
Aye.
Candace Vaux votes aye. All members present voting aye.
Thank you, one and all. David, would you like to propose anything for the upcoming agenda items, given what we know? Yeah. I didn't mean to single you out, but I did.
I think that, I don't know how to put this onto an agenda item, but I would think it would be useful for us to have some concrete understanding of what it is that we could provide in an advisory role that would be helpful to commission and the mayor, if that's appropriate, Andrew. And so I don't know how we would go about that. I don't want to suggest a workshop, but I do think that it's important that whatever we do over here, that it be something that adds value to their process. So I think that's the most important thing, is that we figure out exactly what would be useful to them.
I really appreciate your perspective on that. What you're describing in the psychologist's terminology is avoiding something called pseudo-mutuality. That's where a wife says to the husband, let's go out to dinner. And they get in the car and he turns left. And she says, where are you going? And he says, Burger King. And she said, I meant McDonald's. So they had a global agreement as to what they were going to do, but no real shared consensus. And some clarity of purpose in this group would be a way to avoid that kind of problem, where we have a coherent notion of the scope of our practice, what we're trying to do, how we can be helpful to the commission and to the mayor.
Director Buke, am I correct that there is no express mandate from the mayor's office or commission for this committee?
There's no express mandate. It was discussed as to why this committee was needed, as I set out before, but there's no actual mandate set out. I think it was the intent of the commission and the mayor that this body set up its own sort of mandate, knowing that,
correct,
knowing what's going on in there and having to deal with something more than the Board of Health is doing what they think is proper and right. I'm not saying anything about that. They just take that, but they've got myopic vision, and they've said that in their meetings. And as we all know, there's a lot more involved than just that myopic vision. And there's a lot going on now. I think there's things that you can come up with, some suggestions just out of the top of my head with regard to what's going on and trying getting the vaccines and getting people in and out and all that. And I know a lot of that logistics, nobody seems to have control over except the state of Tennessee. Dr. Buchanan is doing her level best. She's always done her level best to do what's best. And I'm rambling on now, but no, there was no, you're right. There was no actual mandate. And I think what commission and vision was that this body would come up with that, because you have such a broader area to look at. And you may not have the answers, but the commission is looking for any suggestions, and the mayor is looking for any suggestions that this body may have.
The goal of commission and the mayor, as I understand it, and Director Book just said this, is effectively to compile some smart people with medical and economic backgrounds for them to work together on non-specific solutions to the problems facing the community in the pandemic. That's not codified anywhere, but having talked to each commissioner individually about their goals every commissioner has a very different goal and outlook for this committee. It was never expressly put in language what you all would be doing, other than they would like for you to figure it out. Basically, and Director Book touched on vaccination. There are myriad problems facing our community. The mayor appointed some very smart people, commission approved, and they want you all to work together to tackle any number of them as you see fit with your unique skill sets. I hope that's helpful.
And I believe what, oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was just go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Commissioner.
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was just saying, telling Andrew that was correct of why we formed this committee. I mean, it's really, we have a lot of issues in the community, and I can just state that, you know, the issue that I fight for is poverty. In Knox County, we have a 42% poverty rate among Blacks. So that's something I'm very passionate about. I know it's probably more with COVID. So I think we can just use our expertise and figure out what are we passionate about and what problem do we want to solve. And that might be something we do next meeting, you know, just kind of put some discussion items on the table to set the agenda for next meeting, you know. Yeah, just pretty much kind of putting out there what is your passion project? What problem would you like to solve from this committee? That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. This is Candace. I know recently, I'm sure you heard about the murder-suicide at Kazi's restaurant in Farragut a couple weeks ago. So not only am I dealing with the mental health issues in the restaurant industry as a whole, but also some of the issues that are going on with my patrons as well. So I reached out to Andrew and asked if he would like for me to get together some of the issues that small business and the economic impact and the mental health impact of employees in our area. And I would be glad to discuss some of the issues that I'm seeing with my patrons who visit me and my team members. So I can get together something per your request, Commissioner, if you would like, to kind of go over some of the issues that the small businesses in our area are facing.
I think that's great. I think that's a good segue of how we continue to lay structure to this committee.
I want to just mention an idea that is out there. There's some different roadmaps that have been kind of spliced together, looking at careful analysis of data of who is most at risk for problems with COVID-19. I mean, I think one of the things that we need to keep in mind is that a lot of decisions that were made early on were through kind of a lens of uncertainty and the fog of war, if you want to put it in those terms. Because it's very difficult to understand the nature of the disease and how it affects various populations and whatnot. And after a year of analysis and kind of a deep look at what's going on, there are some pretty smart individuals that are out there that have taken a holistic view of health and public health. And Dr. Brown, I'm not sure if I'm sure you're aware, and maybe you have more insight onto what I may be talking about, but some resources that I think this committee could look at are individuals from the Great Barrington Declaration and or PANDA, which is PANDATA. So these individuals are some of the highest level experts that are out there from Oxford, Stanford, and Harvard, epidemiologists, public health officials that have looked at the responses to lockdown, the responses to, and really also taking the disease quite seriously, understanding that focused protection measures for those who are most vulnerable in care homes. Regina Hensley, I'm sure that resonates with you. But at the same time, understanding very, very much the economic devastation, the attainment gaps in education that are going on, the problems with disparity of as far as poverty and who it most hits. And what we're seeing right here in this community is a staggering amount of problems, especially if we're going to look at the chief medical examiner's data on the extra homicides, the drug-related deaths, gun-related issues that are going on, and suicides. These numbers are really hitting home here in Knoxville, and it's what concerns me a lot. So I think there's a roadmap that are out there that are different from what we're seeing in mainstream media news, but these are really smart individuals that have put this together. I think that's a good start as far as we don't have to reinvent the wheel, and we can rely on smart people that are out there around the world. And because a lot of the things that they're seeing out there in the world is applying right here at home. And we certainly need to protect those who are most vulnerable. But at the same time, the economic viability of individuals as it pertains to health is super important. And some of this PAN data and Great Barrington Declaration is really hones in on some of those issues.
So we should all be reading the declaration for starters, and we can be signatory as well. We can sign on to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And also PANDA is PANDA. They have their own protocols for reopening that are based off of data. So there's the evidence that is out there, protecting those who are vulnerable, but at the same time, realizing that the data as it pertains to children, it's not so bad for kids as the data is showing, but keeping kids out of school is having really having a strong effect on mental health and attainment gaps and what that could potentially do for health long term. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel. I think this group is looking for alternatives that are out there. We're looking to improve upon what has happened in 2020 and not point any fingers at anyone at the same time, because it was a hard year for a lot of people trying to make decisions on the fly. But I think there are smart people that are doing that, and I think that's a good way to start.
I think that's right. We have two people who would like to speak. Raymond?
I'm delighted to speak, but David had his hand up first.
Oh, very good. I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. David?
I was just going to bring up the notion of whether or not what we're going to do is gather and present information or make recommendations. And so I would be very hesitant to want to head down a path of making recommendations to someone who hasn't asked for them, and about issues that making recommendations to people who don't have authority to. I just want us to be really clear about what the path is we're headed down. So I like the idea of each of us bringing information of various sorts from our own specific areas of life, of vocation and avocation. But earlier, somebody made a comment about vaccines. And maybe I've not thought through it completely, but I could not fathom any insight I could have on how the vaccine process ought to go. So anyway, that's not a recommendation or a motion or anything, Josh, but I think at some point we need to make a decision about whether we're a body about offering information or advisory, and or making recommendations. And I would caution us against making recommendations if we've not been asked to.
David, this is expressly an advisory board. In the resolution, it states that this shall be an advisory board, so it doesn't have any real voting power. But I defer to Director Book. I would believe that would mean they would want recommendations. I know the mayor would welcome recommendations. I can't speak for commission.
The mayor wants recommendations. I think commission does too. And, I think I brought up vaccines, and I think you've got issues that this body may be able to make some recommendations. Is the initial vaccine thing is one thing, but getting vaccines into poverty-stricken areas or elderly areas other than nursing homes, those kind of things, if you've got thoughts on, information is the key in my mind to good governance. And so whatever information or advice you can give to the mayor and commission, they may take it, they may not, but I think they welcome it. I think Dr. Lundy was very specific about it when she said that, and she's got, this body is going to go on past the pandemic thing, because there are things with regard to the economy and the medical and the mental health of this county, which you're charged with, and it's going to go past the pandemic. So looking down the road, it's advisory. That's what it is. Whatever advice you have, it may be taken, it may be done away with. But I think the commission I know today and the mayor I know today want information.
Well, if I can interject for just a moment.
Hold on, we actually have a bit of order for sequence. So there's apparently some way to raise your hand.
I was looking for that, sorry.
That's okay, Regina. Let's go to Ramon though first, and then we'll come back, Kathleen, and then Regina.
I think I'm unmuted. I am trying to get a virtual screen up.
I may have to.
Because James has made me very happy here by mentioning the American Institute for Economic Research. I happen to be a voting member of AIER. Here, if I can ever get this to work, we will have a screen and you'll be able to see it. Please do go to the American Institute for Economic Research and look at the Great Barrington Declaration to see if you can choose to sign that. I think it would be great. The second thing I would like to say would be, is it possible that we could get a stopping point from some people that are making decisions? For example, is it possible, there we are, that's the American Institute for Economic Research, a wonderful place, and please come visit us. How many hospitalizations is a sufficiently low number that we can get back to normal? How many positive tests? What's a number of people in intensive care that we feel is sufficiently low that we can reopen Knox County? Is it 100? Is it 50? Is it 5? Must it be 0? If we knew what it was, then people would have a sense of hope. We are almost there. We're almost going to be able to return to normal. We just need to get a couple more people out of the hospital or whatever, and we're there. Because the numbers are very, very good compared to a few weeks ago. It seems to me we need to find a spot where we can say, we're okay now, we have to be vigilant, but we can reopen Knoxville. The goalposts have moved a lot since 2 weeks to flatten the curve.
I don't want to sound like a Debbie Downer, but as some of the health providers can attest to, we have people who are what we call long haulers, and the residual effects of this virus will be felt for a lifetime for some people and for a long time for others. And the other epidemic that we've been talking about prior to this was the opiate epidemic, which has not gone away. And we're going to have residual effects of that as well. So it is nice to think that mortality rates and infection rates are dropping, but the impact on our economy and our hospitals is not likely to change in a dramatic way very quickly. That's my opinion, of course. What do I know? But it's good to have benchmarks. I think that's right. And I don't mean to interject my point. We were going to go to, who was next? Was it David or Kathleen? It was Kathleen?
Yes, I just wanted to, and it would be the desire and preference for most if there could be just a hard, a number or a metric that we said when we hit here, we're good. I've been working with a group since last March. as the saying that's become so popular when this all started. We put together a pretty large group on UT campus. It's called Core 19. It's out of the Baker Center. We had mathematical modelers. We worked with colleagues in other areas. We worked with the region. We worked across the state, actually, in trying to grasp this. There are many, many moving parts and many, we got to where we focused on positivity rates. We got to focus on and establish these metrics of whether we were in a risky zone or, the red, green, yellow. The trends right now are really encouraging. It's understanding some of what's behind those as to why they're encouraging. Is it people's vigilance? Now we're having this whole impact of the beginning of what we'll see with vaccines, with the vaccination and trying to increase large percentages. So it's still a very dynamic environment. It's certainly encouraging. I certainly wish there was just kind of one point where we could say we can relax. I don't think we can relax. We have history to tell us what becoming complacent or relaxed about things leads to. It often leads to either resurgence or resistance. We're faced with the challenge of variants with this and some of the unknowns around how the vaccine will manage those variants. So it's still an extremely dynamic environment. I'd love to see us go back. I have family who've been on quarantine at a retirement community since March. I haven't been in their apartment since March. It's very worrisome. I think we'd all like to see the clouds part. I think we need to be patient, and there are a lot of people working on what are those metrics that we can use to say we're now good and we might be able to step back from some of this. So I guess my concern is, because this is really, my commentary is two-part. One, a little bit about the dynamic environment of the pandemic and the sustained dynamic environment. But also, I guess what I heard is that we're not just about the pandemic. And I'm happy, again, to be corrected if I was wrong, because what I heard was let's all each bring from our areas and our areas of passion those issues to this committee and make, sort of some kind of recommendation. Well, that worries me greatly, because in trying to serve, if the expectations are not shared, if the goal is not and there's not shared understanding, I don't know how we'll be successful. So when I hear that the commission and the mayor's very interested in our recommendations, I have to say on what? If there was something very, a specific thing, but if we're going to pull, oh my gosh, and Commissioner Lundy, I'm right with you on addressing poverty. Poverty's huge. The opioid epidemic is huge. The pandemic is huge. Which one? And we don't hold all the expertise here for each of those areas. We clearly have a challenge or a task to address the economic welfare and well-being of our community. That is the health and economic. So there's that blending of that. Also huge. I guess I'm looking and really needing a little bit more clarity of the expectations. At the moment, for me, they're very broad, and I'm struggling a little bit with my next thoughts on how to be successful.
So I think you're asking, again, what David has been talking about, a clarity of purpose, and then figuring out how to leverage our input so it has the greatest positive effect. Is that a fair way of putting it? Yeah. Regina?
Yes, kind of to touch on what Dr. Brown is saying, what I was going to say is I think we need goals. We need to come up with what is our purpose and where do we want to go from there. And just speaking about the pandemic, I know we have a lot of other issues in our county, but just with the pandemic, if you look at the numbers, the 18 to 30-year-old group has the highest positive numbers, but the fewest deaths. You look at the 75 years and up, they have the fewest number of positive cases, but the highest deaths. And then, like for myself, I'm in full PPE, N95 face masks, gowns, gloves, for hours and hours on end during a day. And I hear coworkers saying, well, I'm going to go to the store, but I'm not wearing a mask. They can't make me. Well, that's how it's getting spread. And to get the community, to understand, yes, we need you to wear a mask. If we want to keep these businesses open and keep everybody working, yes, a mask helps. It's not perfect. But I think for part of right now is the community needs to understand we want those numbers to go down. Vaccines are going to help, preventing spread, hand washing, everything we can do, but still keeping the economic part of our county going, keeping our businesses open and protecting those who are compromised. The way that our facility became COVID positive is through an employee. I mean, that's, how it is, because my patients can't leave, their families can't come in. So where else did it come from? I'm tested twice a week, every week, and sometimes 3 times a week since March for COVID. And, it's very difficult on the staff to go through that, but we're doing that and hoping to catch it before it spreads like wildfire. And, the younger population feels invulnerable, indestructible. And they don't realize that small things that they're doing is spreading this to those that are more vulnerable. And if we're going to focus on the pandemic for now, that's definitely one thing that we need to discuss or make as a goal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
David? Mr. Moon?
I've already spoken, Josh.
You're still waving your hand. So what I keep hearing as a repeated idea here is a sort of an identity crisis of not knowing who we are precisely. Regina's given us some urgency with certain populations and certain public information matters with respect to masks and contagion. I guess the issue is really where to from here. How can we leverage our combined resource and experience in a way that's most beneficial for our community? Someone has mentioned having a list of our specific passions for our sense of urgency here. Would that be a useful way to begin?
Josh?
Yes.
I would remind that the purpose today is merely to establish things that we may be interested in ahead of the next meeting, which also, by the way, must be set by this committee today. We don't necessarily, the intent is not to have full debates on several things. It's more to discuss what everyone's interested in, and then from there, they will file individual items with Drusilla to get them on the agenda for next meeting.
Right. I think that's when I said passions, that's kind of what I'm talking about.
Yes. No, I wasn't correcting you. I'm just reminding everybody, if everything that we bring up, if we want that to be actionable, it must be filed ahead of the next meeting. And that's kind of the way to proceed on it.
So I'm not particularly sure I can do this, but let me see if I can restate what I've heard some folks say.
Sure.
I think that, David, you've been very, very helpful in trying to underscore the need for clarity of purpose, a true sense of consensus as to our reason for being and what we can do as a group. Is that a fair summation for what you've been saying? Yes. And then Kathleen, I'm a little bit at a loss. Is there a way to summarize what your specific urgency is?
I share the same thing. I think that there is a lack of clarity, and unless we have it, we won't meet anyone's expectations if the expectations aren't mutually agreed upon or shared. So we may be going in one direction and commission and the mayor's expecting something else. And so I always, when, in committees, for me, it's laying it on the table as to what the expectations are. And it's got to be more specific than just recommendations.
Yes, it's very hard to know how to be good if you don't know what's expected of you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I agree with your summary of David's concern. And I also have concern that we need to be sure we have the expertise to make some of the recommendations, especially around the pandemic. And I think Dr. Chu said, I'm not sure who said it, but that, what did some, certain areas are not shared expertise in the group.
Carletta, we've not exactly heard, I don't think, a specific concern or urgent concern of yours.
I think I'm just trying to figure out, like everyone else, kind of what our goals are, maybe what direction that, there's a lot of different directions that we can go. And I think that's what we're talking about. But I know someone mentioned if we all kind of bring to the table our own passions, that can be pretty muddy, I think, if that's not what our goal is. So I don't know, maybe we're missing a job description, or maybe, I don't know if there's one out there. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I agree that there is apparently no job description other than a vague, don't just sit there, do something instruction. And perhaps it's a gift or a curse, depending on how we approach it. If we can come up with our own structure and proceed accordingly, no one can blame us for doing that. But Candace, if I heard you correctly, you helped articulate one of the economic urgencies in our community, which is that certainly family-owned businesses and entertainment business and food and leisure and so on is taking it on the chin like nobody else. And it's a huge sector of our economic core. It's also a huge part of the culture that I joked about. And that we need to pay attention to that as well, with a sense of urgency as well. Was there more that I missed, or is that a?
No, I think for me personally, everybody's obviously can do their own thing, but when I leave this meeting in the next couple of days, I'm going to write out my own concerns of the economic impact of, like, the mask wearing, the capacity, the staff mental health, the suicide rate, all of the things that I'm seeing in my industry that I can bring to the table to consider. No, I'm not a scientist. No, I'm not a doctor. No, I'm not an epidemiologist. But I am a business owner. So for me,
you're where the rubber hits the road.
Right. And so I'm going to put a summary of my concerns together. I'll be glad to provide those to Andrew and you and the board of things that I hope that we can talk about and consider. And I would encourage everyone to do the same, because if we don't have the clear goals, like Mayor Jacobs made it very clear, he wants to know what the impact is to the restaurant industry. I will give that to him. So if you were asked to be on this board and you have a specific reason why you were asked, I think you should take that to heart and go forward with that in what you can bring to the board. And that will help us create our specific goals for the next meeting. Because there's a reason every single person is sitting here on this Zoom meeting right now. Why were you asked? What can you bring? And how can you help? Period. End of statement. It doesn't have to be drawn out, in my opinion.
I believe that not all of us were asked, and some of us volunteered, which does not clarify why you were chosen, perhaps. Ramon, you were saying it would be very useful to have benchmarks for improvement in the health of our area and economic benchmarks. And I didn't mean to counter what you were saying, but that you were saying we were looking for light at the end of the tunnel and specific measurements to see that by?
First, my name's pronounced Raymond. My parents spelled it wrong. They were decades ahead of their time. We spell all the names wrong now, but it's Raymond.
Yeah, but
I am very concerned that there is no clear endpoint for people who make some important decisions about that affect other people, the restaurant industry.
Are you talking about the percentages that New York City used to for contagion, specifically for opening or closing schools, that sort of a benchmark?
Something like that, but you've also raised a second point. I don't think this committee cares what the situation is in New York. We're Knox County. So if New York is fine and dandy or in a terrible situation, that is pretty much irrelevant to us. To bring it close to home, we were shut down very early, and the virus never even got here, and people were already sick of the restrictions, and the virus wasn't even here yet because New York was having trouble. That type of policy decision, I think, is very dangerous, and we need to work against that. We're local. Now, as for my comment about a benchmark, I think it's fairly important to say to people who make these decisions, what's your number? Please defend it. Not an open-ended, we're going to stay shut down until we feel it's okay. They may have a perfectly good case, but make it.
I've gotten a note that maybe you've all seen from Carletta, just that she had only scheduled for an hour and a half today. And if we could, several people are waiting to make comments, but I'm wondering if we could just stop for a second. And she may have already left, in fact. It looks like she has. So let's continue. She's got some sense of urgency about the next scheduled meeting, but let's proceed. And Raymond, I wasn't suggesting that we follow New York's benchmarks. I was just giving that as an example of a place that did use benchmarks. And I guess we did that some here too with schools, just in terms of specific infection rates. Is that right?
I understand. I just used that as a segue. I like to think of myself as a segue meister because it sounds better than being scatterbrained.
All right. James, you have your hand up, so. You have to unmute yourself, though.
I believe Allison was before me, so I'm going to defer to her.
Okay. I'm obviously not good at order, but Allison, I'm sorry.
My question is for Andrew. I think he's still on here. Trying to find a direction for us to focus on, to start. Is there a place where we can look at the mayor or the commissioners' upcoming agenda so we'll know where to put our thoughts so we can collectively decide how to advocate one way or the other, and the frequency that we'll be having these meetings? So if it's something that's coming up next week and we're not going to meet until next month, that's really not going to work. And also, since I am talking, Dr. Chu's positive points for affirmation on how our community can start feeling, instead of everything being no, 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 and slapped on the head, which I like some restrictions and everybody's guidance, but we need some positivity. And I think that's going to brighten some of the restrictions. Okay, well, I can do this until we get a breathable point. But basically, I was just trying to find a little bit of guidance from Andrew on some things that I
Yeah.
could look forward to.
So the commission's agenda comes out monthly. They meet twice a month, but it's the same agenda, once a workshop and once just a general commission meeting. I would be happy to start sharing that with you all if that's something you would like. A lot of it will not pertain to this. A lot of it's zoning and, you know, just various departments of their issues. But I can do that if that would help. Also, the meeting is entirely up to you all. Well, just one moment. I'm going to pull up a document here. I've found the resolution that established this committee. And it outlines, I mean, a little bit, it's reiterating what Director Book and I have said. It does dictate that this committee will meet at least once a year. And beyond that, I mean, it's, you all have total latitude as to how often, if you want to meet once a month, once every 2 months, whatever. But it says, the committee shall serve as an advisory group to the Knox County Mayor and Knox County Commission on any topic regarding the physical, mental, or economic health of Knox County citizens. That is broad. I would say I'm not the commissioner who wrote it, but it is perhaps intentionally broad. You can go back to them and ask them for clarification on what you'd like them to do, but I think that they would tell you kind of what I said earlier. They simply wanted to put a lot of smart people from diverse backgrounds together, have them evaluate the challenges presented by the pandemic, and suggest some potential realistic solutions. Does that satisfy?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I would enjoy an email of the outline or somewhere where I could go and find it on my own. I mean, you know,
Of the commission's agenda ahead of time? Is that what you're talking about?
yeah, just to familiarize myself with some things that, you know, maybe we could talk about.
Sure.
I sound like I'm working in the dog pound. James?
Yeah, so I think having a roadmap of what as far as thoughts are concerned for direction, I think everybody's looking for it. I think that's in part why I would urge everyone to take a look at panda.org and the plans for reopening. You're smart people, okay? These are Nobel Prize winners, at least one in particular. These are many of the Great Barrington Declaration individuals that are part of the scientific advisory boards, some of the top public health thinkers in the world that are thinking like we are. How do we, what's the end goal? What can we do? Looking at the data of infectious disease and some of the other kind of important health measures that are negatively affected by some of the lockdown measures or whatever it may be. That might help because I think from what I'm understanding from the conversations from Mr. Book and others is that they're looking for alternatives. They're looking for a direction. And I think there's some smart people that have already kind of had preliminary outlines of this in order to maintain economic viability and also to protect Regina's patients as well. I think if we were to take a look at some alternatives from high-level individuals, I think that would help. I don't know because of some of the rules, and please, Mr. Book, can you help us out with this? If I was to, could I share that with the committee members in order to kind of point them in the right direction, or is that something that's allowed, or is that something that we got to do formally in the next agenda meeting or next meeting?
You can, in response to that, if you're submitting just information and you're not discussing what you're going to rule on, that's okay. You can do that. Okay. I just want to make sure I'm in compliance. And so I think that's a good start because I think that's pressing on everybody's mind right now. What are we going to do with the pandemic and how are we going to address the economic issues and the mental health issues without a roadmap? But look, there are a lot of smart people that have been thinking about this, and I think they put it together. I think there's a good way of thinking about it, and I think that's a good start for us all. Just be my opinion.
So we don't have to reinvent the wheel, you're suggesting. Mhm. Regina, I did not mean to overlook you. I want, one of my personal wishes is that everyone feel like they've been heard. So I don't want to exclude you in trying to summarize, but I heard your startling demographic breakdown for contagion and mortality. And that is shocking. And of course, it is the young people who are, if I hear you correctly, the engine for transmission, but not the victims for the results.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. I think, you know, what I'm hearing from coworkers is I'm in this mask all day. When I go out, they can't make me wear one.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of attitude that's kind of fueled this fire. And everybody, we want everything open. You know, we want to move on with our lives, but yet we still have to keep everyone safe, no matter their age. And you know, I think if we set some goals for our committee, you know, that can address some of that in Knox County, you know, I think that's going to make the community feel a lot better. You know, we have the Board of Health telling us medically, this is where we're at, this is what we need to do. But yet, you know, I feel like our purpose is, you know, to take that information and look at all of, you know, look at everything. We're looking at the mental health, we're looking at the medical, we're looking at the economic, and, you know, we need to come up with a plan or recommendations to make that possible. So maybe setting some goals of where we want to be, you know, where we want our committee to go, I think is very important for all of us.
So rather than we only have a few moments left, rather than try to design the agenda for next time, would it be useful to have agenda items submitted by email and have our secretary create the agenda from that for discussion points that we can go through? That's question one. Question two is, do you want to meet next year or next month or next week? Next year seems a little silly to me, but any thought? Is everyone still here? Yes, James. Candace?
I'm fine with picking a certain date. So all of my committees usually meet the third Thursday or the third Tuesday of the month or the second Wednesday. So if we could get a clear date, that helps me with my business so I can set aside time. I don't know how everybody else would be with that. And I would love the idea of being able to email our concerns and our issues to begin to form a very clear agenda that can be emailed to everybody before the next meeting. So I think that would be a good way of going forward.
I certainly like that idea as well. Any other thoughts on that? I expect that David will submit something about clarity, and that will be appreciated. Centrality of purpose is going to be critically important here. Right? We've heard that from a number of people today, so we'll certainly have to put that on our agenda. There's another item that hasn't been mentioned, which has to political ramifications, and that is that it seemed to the public, in the press anyway, that this committee was formed as a way of undermining the Board of Health. And I'm not asking us to address that today, but that is in press, and you can see that pretty regularly. And it may behoove us to address that issue at some point. I haven't heard anyone today objecting to anything that the health department is doing or has recommended, but the perception publicly was that we were formed in some way to undermine or legitimize the removal of the health department and putting Dr. Buchanan as the sole decision maker on that board. Am I correct in that?
Thank you for making that statement. I did hear those concerns when I was listening to the last committee meeting, the commission meeting.
Yeah. So this meeting, I believe, is available to the public, and as one member of the committee, I'm just saying that is not my interest in participating. But any way that we can support the health and economics of our community is the priority that I join this endeavor with. So, and others on this committee are free to feel otherwise and to say so. But do I hear that, which, is this the second or third Wednesday of the month? What are we? Do we want to meet on a set?
This is the third Wednesday of the month.
Shall we meet on the third Wednesday of March?
I'll remind everybody that the third Wednesday in March is St. Patrick's Day.
Then we'll have to wear green.
That's you do you.
Aaron Gobra, there's not a lot of public celebration even for that these days. So shall we meet on St. Patty's Day next? We're not marching on Fifth Avenue. Anyone have a problem with that? Okay. And yes, Kathleen.
I actually think I have an appointment to get a COVID vaccine on the 17th late afternoon, and I prefer not to miss that appointment. I'm sorry. I mean, I can try to carry my phone with me, and that's fine, but that's kind of a priority for me to get it. And it's taken a long time to be able to register. And
Kathleen, it's a priority for everyone that you get the vaccine and for everyone else to get it as well.
I don't want any special consideration.
I think you're deserving of special consideration, especially with the vaccine. How about we meet the second Wednesday of March, which is a little sooner. That'll help us get a little more organized as we go forward. Does anyone have a problem with that? I don't have a calendar in front of me, but.
That's the 10th.
Okay. So we're not going to hit the Ides of March. Any other problem?
What time do you have?
So was this 3 o'clock time okay for folks? Yes? Sounds good. And shall we schedule a 2-hour meeting? Let's be clear about that ahead of time. 2 hours. Okay. Well,
by the way, there seems to, the ones who've spoken up are in favor of a 2-hour meeting. I'm a big fan of, I have a 1-hour rule. And I just feel like, I just would like you to at least contemplate that if we can't get something accomplished in 60 minutes, that our effectiveness, my effectiveness declines after that point. So I think we might contemplate that anyway.
I agree with you. Yeah, thank you for that.
A voice from somewhere. I have no issue with it being 1 hour. I think if we get into meatier subjects and we have more to work on, we can always extend it beyond the 1 hour. Really depends on our ambition, really, and how much we want to do.
I was going to make the suggestion that the first formal meeting with our agenda next month, March 10th, be a 2-hour, and then going forward, hopefully we'll have strong clarity and we'll be able to knock it out in an hour. So I'm okay with the next meeting being 2, but going forward, I would also encourage a 1-hour meeting.
Does that make sense for all? Any other thoughts? Okay. Someone want to make a motion to adjourn? We will be meeting again on March 10th at 3 o'clock for 2 hours, and subsequent to that, probably for 60 minutes on the second Wednesday of each month. This is a very accomplished committee with a wonderful diversity of interests and backgrounds. And we run the risk of doing great things if we can figure out what it is we're going to do. And I look forward to working with all of you. I'm sorry?
I was moving the motion forward to adjourn.
Okay, a second?
Second.
All right, no need to discuss. Ms. Nesbitt, I think we're going to stand adjourned.
Great job, Dr. Williams.